Hello, this is Julian with Coffee Reviews, and today we'll be reviewing the Caio Pereira Pulped Natural Brazil from Kurasu Coffee. There's the cup right there. And Kurasu, based out of Kyoto, Japan. And I'm currently near their Shimogi Award location, and they are a coffee roaster that has appeared on this channel before, as we've done one full bag review of their coffee in the past. And truth be told, this is the coffee shop I was probably most excited to visit in our time in Japan, as they're one of the most well-known and prestigious coffee roasters from the entirety of Japan. And given that I've been to Kyoto before but never visited one of their coffee shops, I definitely wanted to swing by and try it for myself. Now, notes about the coffee shop. So this one right here, the Shimogi Award location, it's considered their stand, and it's actually one of the smallest locations that we've been to out of any of the coffee shops. It was quite cramped as it was very crowded, and a lot of people were picking up coffee, which is really nice to see. That's a huge positive for me. But the things I wanted to mention about the coffee shop is that they had a brand new Kenya that I really wanted to try. Unfortunately, I think it was so new that they weren't offering it as a hand brew. So they did have 4 coffees, one of which was a medium that they called, another was a decaf, and then they had one of the coffees that I purchased a bag of that we're going to be reviewing, so I wanted to not review that one. And that left us here with this Brazil, which actually works out in a number of ways. As I've said in the past, I want to try to review more Brazilian coffees since I've heard so many positive things about Brazilian coffees, so this does give us that opportunity. This is a coffee that they have listed as their light roast, and I think I said in our full bag review that they're not necessarily the lightest roasting coffee roaster. Relative to some of the other ones we've had in this trip, I would say that they're kind of in that middle range. They're not necessarily quite as developed as something like Agawa, but they still don't necessarily have the lighter profiles or components, at least in terms of the coffees we've had to some of the other ones in this series. So let's go ahead and start discussing this coffee itself, as this one right here was quite flavorful right from the onset, and that continues to remain in line with the themes we've experienced from this series. As this one right here, it did offer an abundance of Brazilian-like characteristics to it. So the first thing I noticed was there's a lot of nuttiness, and I didn't even look at the flavor profile, the flavor descriptors that they had for this coffee when I purchased it originally, but I'm like, I wonder if they have any sort of nutty notes listed on here, because I can definitely pull those out. In addition to that, a fair bit of chocolate. But what I really seemed to notice the most in terms of the fruit profiles was some very dark, vibrant berry components to it. So I'm still thinking of a lot of, we'll just say, darker grapes, darker berries in general. And then when I did look at the notes that they had that musket grape note listed on here, which is quite popular given that a lot of coffee shops I've visited here in Japan have a musket grape note listed. I think they had a additional grape component on there as well, which makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of grapey, a lot of darker berry aspects present within this one, but there's just a lot of flavor in general, and I keep hinting at and insinuating that there's that nuttiness. And they have a peanut butter note listed on here. All of these things really make a lot of sense because this cup right here is extremely well defined. Like, the flavor profile in it is very pronounced, and you can pick out a lot of these notes without too much effort, as they're very much on the forefront. But I don't want to take away from some of the other aspects, as there's some really nice subtle components, beauty within this cup as well, as there are some delicate florals that are kind of found hidden underneath all of the other more vibrant and powerful notes in here. And then in addition to that, there are some, we'll just say, subtle background fruit characteristics as well. I think that they have something in terms of an apricot or a peach note list on here, and I can pull that out as there is a more, we'll say, subtle stone fruit behind all of those more robust characteristics within the cup. All right, let's go ahead and put up the tasting wheel so you can see what we're getting. Right, and of course we have our notes right here, so let's go ahead and take a look. And we have quite a few level 4s. So let's go ahead and start with the cleanliness level 4. Yes, when it comes to pulped natural Brazils, more often than not, they act like wash-processed coffees, and that seems to be the case with this one right here, as it certainly did so by offering a very clean base. As I've kind of mentioned, the flavor profiles in this one are very well defined, and you can pull them out with so much ease. It doesn't take somebody that's drank as many coffees as I have to really kind of pick out the flavor notes in this one, so I think they did a really good job of brewing it. While we're on that note, I wanted to say, I don't think I discussed this. They had 4 hand brew options. I mentioned those 4 hand brew options, but they also had a pour option. So you could just pour the coffee. Like, they had a dispenser that just had the coffee. So kind of like a drip offering. It was just a little different, and it was this Brazil as well. I wanted a hand brew of it, but that might have made a difference in the overall experience of this coffee. It's another thing I wanted to know. All right, let's continue on. Finish, level 4. Yes, and it actually is on the higher side of the level 4, as it does have a much more lasting finish to it. So there's a nice caramelized, sweet, candied aspect to this one, and that was another thing I noticed right at the start of this cup. So that is present within the finish. In addition to that, a lot of those, we'll say, darker berry aspects, as well as the nuttiness, definitely very pronounced, especially within the finish. Sweetness, level 4. Yes. Huge credit to them on this one. This is a very sweet coffee. I think, once again, they had something listed like a very sweet note on there. It's a very sweet cup of coffee relative to a lot of other Brazilian coffees I have. I was actually reviewing one that I decided to scrap the review for, and it was another Brazilian coffee. It didn't have quite as many of the sweet characteristics as this one does. This one had really a lot of those in notable abundance. Grapefruit level 4, yes, I've mentioned that a lot in terms of the fruit components. This was the most pronounced for me by a distance, so I actually quite liked it. I think it did give this coffee just a little bit more depth than your straightforward and traditional Brazilian coffees, so credit to them on that as well. Chocolate level 4, yes. Caramel level 4, yes. Those are a lot of the classic characteristics you can expect from a coffee like this, those Brazilian coffees. So I don't think I have too much to say on those because we still have a couple of other things worth discussing. Acidity, level 3. Yes, a little bit more moderate, not necessarily going to be quite as bright as a number of the coffees we've reviewed. I think that's a number of factors. I think it is the fact that this is a Brazilian coffee, as well as it being, we'll just say, maybe not necessarily quite as light as some of the other coffees we've had, but even then, a little bit more moderate relative to those others. Florality, level 4. Yes, a little bit more of those subtle floral components to it. I don't know if I could necessarily say great definition to it, but kind of that soft floral chocolate that I can experience from just a number of coffees, especially prominent in Brazilian coffees. Citrus fruit, level 3, yes. Now we have a train going by. Citrus fruit, level 3, yes. I would say, once again, a little bit more of a generic citrus, though, since there were some, we'll just say, lighter fruit components also present within here. I could see something like an orange or a tangerine. Honestly, don't know if they have any sort of citric notes listed on here, but I've got a fair bit of that. And then that also goes with the stone fruits. Another thing I'd mention that has a little bit of notoriety within this cup, as there's some more sugary stone fruits. So I could see if there's maybe like an apricot. I think that they had peach listed on here, but it's not necessarily quite as fresh fruit, well-defined of a peachy aspect to it, but rather a little bit more subtle of a sugary fruit component in there. Last thing worth discussing is the body level 2. Yeah, that might be the one thing I was kind of surprised by, given the brew method, given the origin and everything, but this one came out notably lighter in terms of the body than a lot of the other coffees we've had during this trip. But as I'm looking at this tasting wheel, I do think it's a pretty good representation of what we're getting from this coffee. All right, so my overall thoughts and impressions of this coffee. This one actually had some, I would say, mixed expectations going into it, because a lot of people know I'm not the biggest fan of Brazilian coffees, but I had some pretty high expectations given who the coffee roaster is. And I think they did a very nice job of this coffee. I think it's one of the more enjoyable Brazilian coffees I've had throughout the year. That being said, I don't drink a lot of Brazilian coffees, so offering a much more pronounced and notable flavor profile to it in the fruits direction really did seem to help, as it goes to show that these aren't always necessarily one-dimensional. It can offer a multitude of things, and this one did. Plenty of fruits in this one, great sweetness, and that was the biggest selling points to me on this one, as it is one of the sweeter cups of coffee I've ever had from them, one of the sweeter Brazilian coffees I've ever had. A lot of the coffees we've reviewed in the series have been very sweet in general, so it's kind of in the middle of that category as well. But relative to the other ones, I think they did a very nice job of this one. So one of the more enjoyable cups I think I've had during this trip, which is saying something given that I've really enjoyed the vast majority of coffees I've had in this trip. Type of person I would suggest this coffee to, it still offers plenty of those Brazilian characteristics. That's the first place I want to start. So if you do enjoy those nutty, chocolatey, caramelized aspects, and this one will offer those in notable abundance with great clarity. In addition to that, if you're looking for some more fruit factors to kind of round out that cup, it's getting very windy here, then this one offers those as well. So just kind of keep all of those attributes in mind. I am going to leave this review at that. If you by chance had an opportunity to try this coffee, I'd love to know your thoughts and impressions of it as well, or anything from Kurasu, as they are one of the most notable coffee roasters in Japan. If you're enjoying the content, give this video a like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed. This right here has been a review of the Caio Pereira Pulped Natural Processed Brazil from Kurasu Coffee. Thank you for watching.